Drummers, welcome. I got a quick question for you. Should you sit in the center of your drum throne or on the edge? I'm really excited because we're going to talk about this today. Here's the deal. In my opinion, we need to be sitting in the center of our drum throne to ensure the majority of our weight is going right through the drum throne. We want our body to not be a variable when we're playing the drums. Now, if you are someone who disagrees with me, I'm going to share a few facts with you, and if you still like sitting on the edge, please do so. Here's my bias. Everything that I'm going to suggest for you is in the vein of helping you play the drums for as long as possible. That means that your positioning has to be optimal, ergonomics. It also means that the resistance on your body needs to be as low as possible. If we can make your appendages as light as possible while you're performing the drums, all of them, arms and length, and I don't mean the physical weight, but I'm talking about torque, moment arm, distance, you will play drums better, easier, with less opposition, and decrease the risk of you injuring yourself by fatiguing your muscular system or going to an end range position. So if you're new here, please check out my prior videos. There are a ton of videos on how high you should sit on the drum throne, what type of drum throne is the best. But today we're specifically talking about weight distribution, and I'm hopeful this is helpful for you and any students that you may have. So we're going to talk about something in classical mechanics. There is something called component forces. And the easiest way to think of it is that if I've got something and I'm sliding it across the table, this is called the translatory force. And then if I were going to try and tip it and rotate it, this is called a rotary force. And if I want to try and rotate something as well as I possibly could, I want to apply the force directly opposite to it, tangential or at a 90-degree angle. If I'm applying something at a 90-degree angle, I have no other forces going into distraction, compression, or translatory forces either direction. So when I'm applying force just in this way into translatory force, there are no forces going into rotary. Now, if I were going to try to point this thing and I'm pushing at a 45-degree angle, there is an equal amount of force. We're thinking about parallelograms, resultance also, if you want to think of it that way. If I'm pushing at 45 degrees, there is an amount of force that is going into compression or translatory force, and there's a component that's going into rotary. And so this is important for us to understand because it means that when something moves at a not optimal angle, we actually have forces going in two directions, compression or translatory and rotary. Now, when we think about the drummer, if I'm thinking about a drummer and I have a drummer sitting with their hips at 90 degrees, let's go like this, at 90 degrees like so, right? Their lower leg and their upper leg. This means that their bum, if they're sitting at this angle, is pushing down into the throne, and there really is no force going forward or backwards. I think from a weight distribution perspective, this is a great idea. The challenge we have is not many people actively have much more than 90 degrees of hip flexion available, let alone 100 degrees. And the reason why I don't recommend people sit at 90 degrees often is because if they haven't checked their active range of motion, and they don't know how much motion they have available, if you can't do this motion and you can't lift your leg up from here, it means you're going to go into more spinal flexion and the risk of hurting your back increases. So the majority of the students I work with end up, and this is just a random ballpark ratio, somewhere between 80 and 70 degrees. So they're sitting a little bit with their hip, and this being the thorax, if you will, at this angle. It allows them to lift their leg up to 90 degrees to do hip flexion-based bass drum strokes. If they do plantar flexion to do bass drum strokes or any heel-up technique, they have some hip motion left over so it doesn't go into their lower back. And it also means thinking about that ratio of translatory to rotary force, the majority of the force is going down into the throne. There's a little bit going down through the feet. Now, if you've studied chair ergonomics at all, many office chair ergonomics will tell you to put more weight through your feet because it takes weight off of your back. And this is very true in the I'm sitting in an office chair scenario. The challenge is, as drum athletes, if you will, most of us are required to use our feet. And most of us, if we're keeping time with our left foot or are playing double bass, will have to play unison strokes but with both feet at the same time. Even if it's just for 4 on the floor, left foot, and we're doing quarter notes on the kick drum, doof, doof. Both limbs have to lift at both times, which means that we cannot rely on our feet as our stable base unless you're playing heel down jazz stuff. But most of us, I think most, are not doing that exclusively. So if I take that angle I regarded at around 80 to 70 degrees, and I go even higher, let's say 45 degrees. Now I have this split that I told you before, that 45-degree angle, where half of my weight's going into my bum and half of my weight is kind of going forward down through my feet, which means that my feet are actually taking way more weight, which means that my legs are actually heavier for my plantar flexors, dorsiflexors, and hip flexors to lift my leg. In fact, I'm 180 pounds right now, and I did an experiment with scales, which you can see in my shorts. When I sit at my normal position with my weight in the middle, I have 18 pounds of weight going between each foot, so 36 pounds of weight total. That's a small portion of my 180-pound frame. When I sat up higher, that went all the way up to 36 pounds, so 72 pounds total. I'm getting really close to just under half of my body weight. So that means if I want to lift up both of my legs with that 72 pounds of force in front of me, I need opposition to lift those legs up, which turns into people leaning back and arcing their lower back to change their center of mass to manage the weight of their legs. Here's the deal. Overall, if you're going to be sitting for long periods of time in an office, on an airplane, anywhere, a bar even, they got bar stool with footrests, you're going to want more weight going through your feet. The question is, if you want to use your feet at a very high dexterous level, or even just not worry about your feet whatsoever and have a safe lower back, we got to get that weight off of your feet so your feet can do what they want to do. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, but truthfully, in my world as a fitness professional specializing in biomechanics and motor control, decreasing resistance and opposition on the body is one of the most powerful and simplest ways to help the drum musician athlete perform at the highest level possible. So here's what I would encourage you to do. There's personal preference here, but there's a couple things. One, assess your drum thrown height. Make sure it's within your active range of motion. Watch some of the prior videos. Two, I would sit just low enough, but also high enough that your weight can be in the middle of the drum throne and not be obstructed by the edge of the throne. If the throne is so high that your thigh's hitting it and it's uncomfortable, you may want to lower that throne just a little bit. I'd also recommend this crazy idea, and you don't have to do this. This is a mechanical exercise. I want you to do your best double bass drum impression. Play 8th notes or 16th notes between your feet alternating, and put a camera beside you so it's facing a side shot of your body, and see if you're playing double bass or just alternating single strokes between your feet. Does your lower back or upper body have to move? If your lower back is moving, you are on the edge of not grooving. And I think that's a very important thing to recognize. I love watching the Thomas Langs, the Grant Collins, the Terry Bozzios, because if you watch them from behind move their feet from these different pedals, their lower back is not moving. Even crazy double bass drummers like Chris Turner and a few other people, I would encourage you to watch these people because they're playing crazy things with their feet, but their lower back's not moving. Now, you may not desire playing crazy things with your feet, and that's okay, but they are on the extreme of the athletic lower body continuum as a drummer, and we can learn a lot about that. So in short, for you to protect your back, keep your weight distribution in the center as much as you can. Do everything you can to make sure your height is optimized so there's no lower back motion so you can play forever. Because many of these people who have had lower back issues from playing the drums have either been sitting too low or there's been too much motion in that area. Anyway, Brandon from Drum Mechanics, do everything you can to protect your lower back, stay healthy, stay happy, and honestly, drummers, stronger drummers play longer. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon.